This episode is brought to you by Midwest Night Watchers, found everywhere on your favorite podcast platforms.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Piercing the Veil.
Hi, nice to see everyone. It's Sunday again.
Yes, we're excited about tonight. We're going to be talking about some woodwalkers. We call them Bigfoot around here, or some people Sasquatch, but yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Greg has a lot of information, and I see a lot of new people in here. So we had to just go through the list real quick.
Yeah, go through the list.
I see Dog, Deb, Sherry, Judy Wheeler. We got Wendell. We got Roger in the house, which is Squatch and Holler. Miss V is in the house. Thank you, Miss V, for showing up. We've got Gary, which is the best mod in the whole community. We've got Richard. Let's see. Am I missing anybody? Blazer was in earlier. Leanne, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Probably Leanne.
Leanne. Oh, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a great show. We're not going to talk too long. We're just going to get Greg on here and just have him start talking.
Yeah, thanks everybody for popping in. And if you have any questions or comments that you want us to pay attention to or read, please put them in all caps for us, and we'll try to get to them. Other than that, we'll probably just be chatting like we're across the kitchen table from each other and just see what kind of rabbit holes or what direction we go to. We have no idea. Nothing's planned. So we're just going to have a nice conversation and see what Greg brings up for us. So having said that, let's go ahead and get Greg up here.
Hi, Greg.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've seen you in a couple different places, especially Jessica. We really loved that interview you did with Jessica, and we've been over on Woodwalkers, and so we try to tune in, and we just thought, man, it'd be great to get Greg on and share your stories and experiences with our audience.
Well, I've had a lot of experience. I don't know. I tell everybody I'm not really a researcher. I just been around and seen a lot, and these things kind of found me. I wasn't looking for them when I found them. They just kind of stepped out of nowhere in my life, and man, life went to changing and changing fast. I really didn't. I ain't gonna say I didn't believe in them. I just thought that they were like from Falk, Arkansas, going west. I didn't realize that these things were here in Alabama. I had no clue. That was one of the last things I thought I'd ever see, because I grew up out here in the country, North Alabama, and my daddy was an outdoorsman, and from the time I was big enough to walk, my daddy was dragging me to the woods. We were hunting, we were fishing, we done a little bit of everything. And I was the guy that would have spoke up with anybody and said, them things ain't here. I've spent all this time in the woods, never seen nothing, never heard nothing. They're not here. I was that guy. So when people tell me I don't believe in it. Man, I've spent, you name it, 15 years hunting, 20 years hunting, 30 years hunting. I've never seen nothing. Well, that's okay. Look, I was that dude. I was that exact guy. Well, these things found me. And they found me right over here about well over a mile from where I'm sitting in the woods. It was wild. I mean, we went for a long time. It didn't take me a real long time to figure out, that I had a lot of questions that I couldn't answer. I mean, we picked that up really right off the bat. And when I started really digging in, looking for answers, the answers I was getting, I wasn't believing, because it was what I was experiencing was lining up with people that had Bigfoot encounters. And I still couldn't believe it. Very, very skeptical. But along about the same time, started hearing people talking about seeing stuff, and I got to really paying attention to what a few other people was saying. And there was a guy that went to church, where we go to church. This guy was a night watchman, and he worked over here about from where he lived, and he lived just a little ways from where my house is. He was having to drive about 25 miles to go over here, and it was a mobile home plant. He would, after the plant closed in the evening, he would stay till the next morning. When people come in, he'd go back home. Just a night watchman. Well, the guy had an encounter. And come to find out, when I found out where the encounter was, he was almost right at the entrance where you turn on a government road to go into where I was hunting and having all these encounters. So he was less than a mile from where I was having these encounters. This guy had one. It was a wee hours of the morning, 4:30ish, I think, in the morning. He was driving home, and you go through these real sharp curves on this 2-lane paved road. Well, this thing was, when he rounded the curve in his pickup going home, this thing was squatted, kind of hunched, squatted at the edge of the road. When he came around the curve and his headlights hit it, the thing stood up and looked at him and then ran across the road in front of him. Now, look, this guy was, I'm guessing, in his early 60s, and this guy was avid outdoorsman. I'm talking about this man deer hunted. He fished every second he could fish through the summertime. He was a big time quail hunter and used bird dog. He had a bunch of bird dogs. And this guy was a stand up dude. I mean, he wasn't the type to just go around making up tall tales. And it absolutely traumatized this guy. I mean, it messed him up pretty bad mentally. And later on, I found out that when he saw it, he drove straight to his house, which was probably another 8-10 miles. He went in his house, grabbed his shotgun, and loaded it. Made sure all of his doors was locked. And basically stayed in the house. Wouldn't go outside. Wow. And then some of his buddies, he finally confided in a couple of his friends what he'd saw, and he was struggling dealing with it. I mean, the guy didn't wound up. He had some health problems, and he didn't live but a couple of years or so after that. He died from natural causes. But this guy, I found out about what happened to him. And I'm like, is this really what I'm dealing with? Because, when it started off, we were hearing, I'd be in the woods hunting, and I'd hear tree knocks. Or I'd hear these loud whoop, W-H-O-O-P. And it would be loud and long. And sometimes it would be, sound like it would be an eighth of a mile away when I'd hear one whoop. Or I've had them be within 40, 50 feet of me and be in the thicket of whoop. And it would be horrendously loud. And I've had them knock trees. I'd be in the woods and be deer hunting, and these things they'd knock trees. And usually when they would knock a tree, it would be usually the one that was closest to you. It would be 3 knocks, and it'd just be pow, 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 and it quit. You give it a little bit of time, 30 seconds, a minute, something like that. You would hear a reply from somewhere. You never knew which direction it was going to be. But usually the reply would be 2 knocks. And, it would be a lot further away. And, I'm like, what in the world are these things doing? What, here I am. I'm lost as Moody's goose in this crap. And I don't know what's going on, but, I'm just mental record of all this thing we're experiencing. And I say weird because my dad was with me. My dad hunted with me a lot. And the property we were hunting in, it was a square 40 acres that my cousin, he had it. It was surrounded by national forest land. Well, I went in there, he'd had it clear cut, and then he just allowed it to grow back up on its own naturally. And this was just like a jungle. I mean, just a pure jungle of any kind of sapling, hardwood, pine trees. It was briars. It'd be saw briars, blackberry briars, any kind of thorn bush you could think of. And it was just, you couldn't hardly get a bulldozer through it. This stuff was just like a wall. It was just thick. And these things would move around in that thick. And, I'd be in a stand. The first year mainly, we was here and we'd hear whistles. You'd have a monotone whistle. These things would whistle. And I could hear stuff walking around, and it would whistle. And I could hear it breaking limbs, walking, and bipedal walking, going around the field. And that thing would whistle. It may not go 30, 40 feet, and it'd whistle. It'd go 40, 50 feet, and whistle. And it'd continue going. You'd hear it go sound like an eighth of a mile across this cutover. And it would go one green field to the other, and the green fields were a little over an eighth mile apart, kind of diagonal on this property. And it would go up to the upper field. One was up on the hill, and the other field was down pretty close to the river. And I've had them go around and just be breaking limbs and walking and pushing its way through. And it would go out and go up like near the field where my dad was. And when I'd come out of the woods, I'd ask Dad, I said, "Did you see anything?" "No." He said, "I know you heard that thing come from down there where you was." I said, "Yeah, I heard it." I said, "Was it still whistling when it passed you?" "Yep, whistled all the way to got to the big timber and then kept going." And, we couldn't put it together. Here my dad was in his 60s, and he grew up hunting and fishing. And, I'm talking about big time outdoorsman. And, like I said, when he was dragging me to the woods as a kid, I killed my first deer before my 5th birthday. Wow. And, and the squirrel hunting and any kind of, Daddy he actually had a commercial fishing license. We would catch and sell fish to markets and restaurants and stuff like that. And we were outdoors. I mean, that's all we done. We had a farm. We had 4 poultry houses. A lot of times we'd have 30, 40 head of cattle. One time we had as many as 90 goats. Daddy would raise like hunting dogs. I can remember a time when we had Walkerz and Plots. And then Dad decided that beagles was the way to go. So we had rabbit dogs and we had deer dogs. But at one time we had 30-something, beagles to run deer with. I mean, we spent lots and lots of time in the woods. In the state of Alabama, for pretty much up to the last, say, 8-10 years ago, it was legal to kill a buck a day all season. I'm talking about from October 15th to the last day of January, it was perfectly legal. You don't have to have tags. You just had a hunting license. You could kill a buck deer. Didn't matter as long as it had horns. It was legal.
Wow.
And then you had a certain amount of doe days that you could harvest, does. I can remember, the most Dad ever killed in 1 year that I know of. I think he killed 23, and I killed like 18. So, I mean, we're no strangers to going in the woods and harvesting animals. And, Dad had hunted all over the state of Alabama. I mean, he'd hunted from South Alabama up to the Tennessee line. And never ever had anything happen like what we had over here in the woods. And wow. Dad was, I would ask Dad when I'd get out of the woods, we may hear the whoops, we may hear the tree knocks, the whistles. And I'd ask Dad, I'd say, "What in the hell is that going on?" He said, I don't know, but whatever it is, it's big." I said, "Yeah, it's big. It's breaking limbs, walking around through this cutover. But Daddy, I can't figure out what it is." And, this was the whole first season was like that. Well, then the next year, it kind of started ramping up. And for the first several years, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And, it eventually turned to where just what we were having, the whoops and the tree knocks and the whistles, kind of turned into the huff. They started, I guess you could add on like the growling and the huffing. I call it the huff grunting. And then it turned into, they would They would escort us out of the woods. They would chase you as you was walking. When you'd walk, they'll walk. When you stop, they'll stop.
Oh.
Then it progressed into, they got to where they would scream at us. They got to where they would throw stuff at us. They got to where they would chase us to the truck. Sometimes they would head you off and like get between you and the truck. They got to stealing deer that we killed. And I tell people, I'm not talking about, because anybody that hunts, I don't care who you are, if you shoot enough wild game, you're going to eventually shoot, especially a whitetail. You can make a lethal shot. And they say that the deer can run up to 18 seconds after it's dead. I'm talking about its heart can be blown apart, and the blood that's in its system and the oxygen that's already into the muscle tissue, if that deer can run up to 18 seconds. Well, a deer that's not crippled, they can run 200 yards. And what we say, running dead, I'm talking about one, you can have a lethal heart shot, the thing's heart annihilated, and that deer run 200 yards. And you may have a blood trail, and you follow it, and it's a bunch of blood, and you find a big pool of blood or a puddle of blood, but yet you can't find the deer. Now, anybody that hunts, you're going to have those situations. Right. And I'm not saying that's a Bigfoot stole your deer. What I'm talking about is the ones that I have killed and see them fall. They're laying there dead. Get down. Let them lay there for 10 minutes. Climb down. Go to them. Get to the deer. Walk up. Kick it. It's not wiggling. It's not moving. Its eyes are fixed open. The deer's tongue's hanging out. It's not breathing. Reach down. Pick its head up. Look at its horns. Turn its head around looking at it. Lay it back down. The deer's dead. It's totally dead. It's done. And it's laying at the edge of a field or just barely out of the field into the woods or laying in the field or in the hardwoods. But you've laid hands on this deer. I've had deer that I've done that to. Have to walk out, go a couple of 300 yards to get the vehicle. Be gone 10 minutes. Drive back in there with my vehicle to load this animal up, and the thing be gone.
Oh my God.
No drag marks, no blood trail, no nothing. It's just like it just floated away. And I don't mean that, and where I'm talking about, there's no way a person would have came in there and got that deer. They would have had to came through me to get in there to get to the deer. A couple of them that were gone, one that my dad shot, he shot a big doe, and he watched it. This thing lays over there for over an hour. Doesn't move. It's dead. It got dark, and I was hunting on the far end of this property up next to an old cabin. So I climbed down and out of my stand and got to my Jeep, and I had to drive, I guess, 3/4 of a mile or further to get to where Dad was at. And I was texting him. I heard him shoot. I said, "Did you get one?" He's like, "Yeah, I killed one of those does you said was going to come out." I said, "Okay." And I told him, I green lighted him, kill a doe, because I usually don't kill does on this property. But he was like, me and your mama need some meat. I said, "Well, look, every evening there's going to be, it's like 6 or 7 does. I'd saw these deer like 4 or 5 times that I'd hunted for like a week or so. These deer was coming out. You can nearly set your watch by them." And I told him, I said, "They're going to come out over there. They're going to come out like, from 4 o'clock or from 3:45 to 4 o'clock. They're going to come out. They're going to eat down side of the field. They're going to go back in, and they're going to hit that old log road and be gone." Well, I heard him shoot. And I gave him a couple minutes. I texted him. I said, "What'd you shoot?" "I killed one of those does." I said, "Was it a big one?" "Oh, yeah, it was a big one." Well, I said, "Well," I texted him back. I said, "Well, just watch. There may be a buck come out, because it's here in Alabama, here in doe season, you could kill a doe and a buck per day." I said, "There may be a big buck come out. I'll see you when it gets dark." I climb down, go up to my Jeep. I might get to the Jeep. It's done getting dark. So I drive through this old log road, cross a little bridge and a branch, drive around where he's at, pull up there. He climbs out of this shooting house. It's elevated up on post. It's like a 4x6 box stand. He gets everything closed up, climbs down, gets in the Jeep. I said, "Okay, where was it at?" He said, "Oh, they came out across the field over there. It's 215 yards." I've laser rangefinder so many times across this field, every spot in this field. I said, okay. I said, you killed, oh yeah, she's been laying there dead ever since you texted, ever since I shot. I said, okay. So instead of driving around this 28-acre field, I just turned my Jeep and go straight across this field. Pull up over there, and I said, where's your deer? Now, mind you, I'm in a Jeep Wrangler, four-wheel drive Jeep, regular Jeep Wrangler. I got big KC spotlights by the windshield, and there's two out on the winch bumper. So it's lit up like daytime. I got all these, headlights are on bright, got all these big off-road lights on. I drive over there. He said, she's laying right there in that road. I said, okay. I drive over there, and we get right to the road. I said, where's your deer? She's laying, and he just gets quiet. But she was laying right there. I said, that's a deer laying there. He said, well, she was laying right there. Said, when it got so dark I couldn't see over here with my scope, he said, it was probably another 10 minutes. And you pulled up. He said, that deer was here about 10 minutes ago. Huh. I said, well, that deer ain't here tonight. So I pulled my Jeep up there and park, leave it running. All these lights are on. It's like daytime. I get out, and right where he says this deer was laying, there's a pool of blood. I'm talking about it's like that big. And the blood's, looks like it's a quarter-inch thick, just matted blood. Well, I go to looking. There's no blood trail away from there. I mean, it's just a pool of blood and no deer. Well, I've got a handheld light, spotlight, and I'm shining the ground. Well, I noticed in the sage, there's a little bit of sage grass there. It goes back about 10 or so feet, I guess. There's an impression, and it's this big oval. This thing's about probably 18 or so inch oval, and it's probably 10 inches wide and about 18 inches long. The sage grass is matted. Well, about 5 feet behind it, there's another one, and then a little further behind it, there's another one. It's like these big footprints. You can't see toes and all that because all that grass, but you can see where that sage is broke down and mashed. It's like it was about 3 steps right up to that deer, and then the deer was gone. It just vanished. I told Dad, I said, well, you had a deer. He said, well, reckon where it went? I said, Booger Man got your deer. He said, well, I don't know, but it ain't here. I said, look, we're going to shine around out in the field. And look, we shined the light all around my Jeep. I'm talking about probably 40 yards, just, spotlight. There's nothing. Then that part of the field, when I had disked it up to plant it, I ran out of seed. So there wasn't that much grass kind of in that corner where he shot this deer. It was just, plowed ground that had been rained on. And there was nothing. I said, look, I'm not stomping in the damn woods. Whatever left them damn footprints, I'm not going in there and wrestling your deer back away from me. So we get back in my Jeep and leave, and, we're still perplexed on the whole deal. And about 2 or 3 days later, I went back over there, and it was up during the day. And I drove in on the other end of that field, the road that comes in there. There's only one road in and out of that, to go into the field. Well, I drive around, and I get around on part of this field because the field's so big. It's about 750 yards long and average about 200 yards wide. I kind of come around and over this rise, and on the far end of the field where Dad's deer had got stolen, I saw kind of like a brown-looking blob out in the field. And I first thought it was a coyote. I thought, well, that's a coyote. It's out in the field a little ways. So me being the good redneck that I am, I just turned my Jeep sideways and throw it in neutral. And I stick my rifle out the window because, coyotes kill gobs of your fawns over here. So we try to do some coyote eradication. Well, I get my rifle out and crank my scope up and get on it. Well, I see it's not a coyote. Now, this thing is probably 400 yards from where I'm at the Jeep. But I can't tell what it is. I can see it's something, but I'm not sure what it is. But I know it's not a coyote. Whatever it is not moving. I put my rifle back in the seat. I continue on, drive over there. Well, I pull up and get out, and it is a deer carcass. Oh. And this carcass has been stripped. I'm talking about all the chunks of meat on this thing. It's like mostly bone, and it's not like rotted or decayed flesh. The flesh that's still on there is still. It'd been cold for a couple of days. probably would have still been edible. It was still tender looking meat, but it looked like the bigger portions of like the hindquarters, the hams, like something just ripped the meat off of it. And the hide looked like something had grabbed this thing, like its head's here and its rear's here, like he grabbed it in the middle and just like opening a bag of potato chips. He just pulls the hide. The hide is pulled all the way up and dangling just over like its ears and its nose, and the hide is stretched down. Well, then it's barely hanging off the hoofs and a little bit of the rump of this thing. And I go looking, and all what we call the sweet meat, all the insides of this thing, the heart, the liver, the lungs, the guts, this thing is totally vacant inside. There's not a knife mark on it anywhere. And I found on its right side, it was facing Dad's right side when he shot it, there was a rib bone that had a little round hole in it about the size of a cigarette. And on the other side, the opposing side, there was a rib that had a section about that big was gone. It was like the bullet hit on this side, went through a bone, went across, and was expanded and tore out a chunk of bone on the other side. All right? That deer's neck, why in the world its neck was like this? That thing's like you got its neck. It looked like a Twizzler. It looked like you took its neck and spun it.
Really?
It was just wound up, and its head was curled plump. It was like a complete turn, and its head was back up on its body. Well, I go to looking at the ground, and like I told you, it was plowed and it had been rained on a few days before Dad shot that deer. All right? I could see where the carcass had impacted in this plowed dirt. It hit and made an indentation, and you could see where it rolled. It rolled like a couple of times and came to rest where I found it. But there was no tracks in the field. There was no coyote marks. There was nothing. There wasn't even any buzzard tracks around the carcass in the soft soil.
Wow.
It was like something had brought that carcass back and flung it from the field. And this thing was, 20-something, 30-something yards from like the edge of the field. It was thrown out in the field. You could see where it hit and like rolled and came to rest. And it was just mind-boggling. And I got thinking about it. Okay, this deer had bullet holes in it that would correspond to where the way Dad shot that one. It's right in the same spot where, it's within, say, 20 yards of where the blood pool would have been. There's nothing drug it out here. It damn sure wasn't here the other night, because when Dad and I had left in my Jeep, after we looked for that one, I just made a loop in the field and turned around and drove out. This carcass was only a few feet from where the tracks that my Jeep made when we turned around. It had thrown it out in the field and landed, and it made me feel like they were kind of taunting us of, y'all just thought y'all were going to get a meal from here. We're going to take what we want, and we're going to throw you the scraps. And that's basically what it did. It just threw like the scraps of what little meat was left on this thing. But there was nothing on it that was chewed, looked like, because I looked all over the bone, like where a coyote had chewed. There was nothing like, sharp teeth had gnawed the meat. It wasn't tattered. Yeah, it wasn't anything like that. But now, I had some pictures of it, and I've got some Polaroids at home of that carcass. But a friend of mine, which came to be just, unreal good friend, was Mr. Bill White, that his pen name was Tal Bronco. And Bill was from Arkansas, and he was a Bigfoot researcher for over 60 years. And I met Bill by just sheer happenstance. And I'd talked to Bill and told him about some of my encounters and this and that. And I actually knew Bill before I ever, actually with my own eyes, saw the first Bigfoot that I could actually lay eyes on. But Bill, he wrote a book, and some of my encounters, and then that encounter of my dad's and another one, is in that book, and it's the Southern Bigfoot Files. But in that book, I can't remember what page it is, but there's actually some pictures that I took of that carcass that's in that book. Bill asked me, he said, "Do you care if I use those pictures in this book to go along with the story?" I said, "No, sir," and I sent him the pictures. So that those pictures of that deer carcass are actually in that book. But
Wow. So I know there's two different theories on Bigfoot. You know, the dimensional and the flesh and blood. Do you think that your carcass was missing? You guys didn't see anything because maybe he was dimensional and was able to pick up the carcass, or do you think they're that stealthy?
I think that was that stealthy. I think that thing was sitting there waiting until it got black dark. And I think it just stepped out there about 3 or 4 steps, reached down, snatched it up, and left with it. I think that's what happened on that. Now, look, I was in the. Look, I done told you, I wasn't even pretty much even in the Bigfoot believer story, especially this side of Arkansas. So it took me a long time to just come to grasp with that. And then once I came to grasp with that, I still had questions. But now, the questions of me believing in them, even though I had, when I tell people hundreds of encounters by 2009, I mean, this stuff really started in 2000. And, by 2009, we'd done seen several footprints that we couldn't explain. I've seen various size barefoot footprints in the woods. Just experienced a lot of stuff that I absolutely couldn't wrap my head around. And, here I am, all the evidence is telling me that this has got to be what it is, but I can't see one. So therefore, I've still got this certain degree of doubt. I'm still, because like I said, I'm clinging on to I was the guy that had spent all this time in the woods, hunting, hiking, camping, going in the middle of the woods on these creeks fishing,
Right.
walking miles and miles, and I'd never seen anything. And then here I am. It's like, and look, I had hunted this property over there. I mean, I'd hunted it for years and never had an encounter. Nothing. Now, we got thinking about back, Dad and I, and actually my cousin that owned the property, we got to thinking about stuff that we would just chalk up as, I don't know what that is, but we didn't think about it. That we'd probably had some encounters, but it was nothing, along that line of a deer just getting stuck or us seeing one. But when I had to come to terms with these things are absolutely real, and there one is, was January the 29th of 2009. I was about 2.5 miles from right here, and through the woods it ain't that far, but by the road it's about 2.5 miles. And I was driving down the 2-lane road, and I worked for a gas company. And I was driving a bobtail gas truck, and I was having to work that day. And I was kind of upset because our season, the last day of deer season, is on the 31st of January, and here it was the 29th. It was on a Saturday, and I got called into work because the weather was cold. And I was really upset I didn't get to hunt that day. Well, I come around the curve and kind of over a little bit of a rise, and there's a long straightaway. Far end of it, the road banks real hard to the left. The right side of the road, you got the surface of the road, and then you got a bank that slopes down. It's covered in grass, about 3 or 4 inches tall. It slopes down, and it flattens out, and it went probably, say, 25 feet to the pine timber. It's all pine trees on this side of the road. Actually, both sides of the road. Well, as I come around that curve and kind of top the rise of that hill, and I'm driving about 40 miles an hour. I'm not going fast. Far into the straightaway where the road makes that bank to the left, I see this guy step out of the tree line. And it's a little bit of a shade where he steps out. And it's like one big long step. Just one big stride. Just steps out. And it stops. And when the thing stops, I'm getting a profile look. Now we're talking 300 yards back. But I'm going, say, 40 mile an hour, 35, 40 going that way. And all this.
Hey, Greg, we're starting to lose your audio. You're getting really quiet. There's like a wave sound. Like, I don't know what you're.
Some kind of feedback. Sounds like wind and whistling.
I'm not done anything. Has it been that way? Or
now you're clear
good.
right
Yeah, now it's clear. Oh, that's wild.
I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway, at the far end of this straightaway, this thing steps out, And now it'll take me way longer to tell it than the way it happened. But this thing steps out and I'm getting a profile view. And the first thing pops in my head was that SOB's hunting and I'm having to work. So I was kind of ticked off about it. Well, immediately this thing goes from like a profile. This thing like rotates its whole upper body and it turns straight toward me. And it's like it compresses. It's like its elbows and its arms flail out and its knees bow out and it just like squishes down. The whole thing just like compresses. It's like gets wider and shorter. And it does that. And then it's like, to me, it's like it was going, uh-oh, I'm caught. Like, I did not see that truck. Well, the thing takes a long step, like it came out, and it turns and sees me. It's like, uh-oh. And it takes a long step, and I see its body swing, and it takes a long step to go back in the woods, like it's going to go back into the, to hide.
Right.
Well, about the time its weight shifts, it just like stops. And then it's like, oh, hell, I can make it. The thing pivots back around toward the road. And I watched this thing. It looked like a compressed spring. It just like explodes and goes flying through the air. And it's like going at an angle and it just does this and hits the roadway.
Wow.
I watched this thing launch from standing dead still, or actually shifted. And it does this spin and launches to toof. And when its foot hit the ground, it hit on the asphalt. Now, we went back and measured, and the elevation of the road was right at 5 feet from down here in the flat where it left from. So a 5-foot elevation, and it was 20-something feet horizontal. So I watched this thing explode and land in the road, and like a blur runs across the road. Its stride gets just a little bit bigger, and it launches across a ditch on the other side that was probably 12 feet or 14 feet that I watch it just like its stride just got a little bit bigger, just glided poof. And it was probably a 2.5 foot elevation above the roadway at this width. And it really didn't hardly break stride, but it ran, there was a power line where the road was that I'm in, there was a power line right away that they kept bush hog, kept it real clean. And there was a power pole and a guying wire with an anchor, and there was a privet hedge that grown up just like got big at the top that they had bush hogged around it, but it was in amongst that wire and they couldn't cut it down. That thing ran between the power pole and that wire that came down. So that put it pretty close to that privet hedge bush. So that gave me a good scale when it ran by the bush. And that thing locked about that much. I'd say 16 inches being as tall as that privet hedge. And that privet hedge was like 10'4", 10'3", something, a little over 10 feet. So that puts what I saw conservatively 8 to 8.5 feet tall. All right. Judging by that height, this thing, when it squares up on me, going by height versus width, this thing had to be as big as a sheet of plywood. I'm talking about shoulder to shoulder, outside of shoulder to outside of shoulder. I'm guesstimating 4 feet wide. And when it turns, I saw it more, kind of it wasn't totally side profile because it didn't run straight across. It kind of ran kind of like toward me, it kind of angling toward me a little bit because of the way the road was. It kind of a diagonal, I guess, but that thing had to be over 2 feet thick at least. I'm saying 2 feet thick from chest to its backbone, 4 feet wide, and over 8 foot tall.
Wow.
And the hair on it, the blackest black that you shine. I'm talking about silky, shiny looking black hair. I don't mean like leaf litter and mud and dirt and debris. This thing, when it ran across there, the sun was hitting it, and I could see like it would be like silver patches, like moving it because like where the muscles was bulging and contracting, it was making the sun reflect. You know how like if you have a Brahma bull out in the pasture or a horse that's super super shiny black, If the sun's hitting, you'll get kind of a reflection. It'll be silvery gray looking.
Yes.
That's what I was seeing, and it was almost like, I ain't gonna say it made it camouflage, but it was like the different stuff was moving on it, the colors, because I could see like the thigh muscle. I could see it bulge and go back. And this thing crossed that distance, y'all. I have never, not even close, have I ever seen a deer run that fast. I mean, not even close. But that thing ran across that, like I said, it jumped up in the road, crossed the road, jumped the ditch, ran by that privet hedge, crossed that power line right away, and then there was a bunch of old blackberry briars. And as it's ran, it didn't even slow down when it got to that briar thicket. And this thicket I'm talking about was just a woven mess of briars. You know, blackberries, if anybody don't have them, I guess maybe most people know what blackberries do. They'll grow straight up and then they'll fall over. You know, they'll fall just hodgepodge. They'll be laying, and the briars on them is more of a hook instead of a spike. So everything intertwines, it like locks together.
Yeah.
All right. This stuff, y'all, it would have probably nearly choked down a four-wheeler to try to drive through that. That thing never missed a beat. It didn't slow down. It didn't check up. It went through those briars like nothing. I mean, like it was open ground. And I can remember, like, through the briars were all brown then because it was wintertime. I could see I could see its legs moving as it's running through that. I could see the black legs moving through the briars. But from that thing's waist up, it was just pure black because that's where the briar stop was, about its waist. When I went back over there, after I got out, I called my dad. We went back over and I told him, said, bring a tape measure. I want to measure some stuff. That briar thicket, I didn't, with the tape measure it. But now I'm 6'1". Those briars, the average height was about my chest, about my chest right here. And that was where that thing's, like its straddle would have been, about its waistline. So I know it was that much taller than me. Now, like I said, we measured some stuff out, measured the privet edge. That's what I was really concerned with, because I wanted to see how it measured up on that privet edge. But now, like I said, y'all, it's going to be 16 years ago that happened. But that was the day that those things stepped out from a book of fairy tale to real life.
Wow.
I mean, all my questions as far as them being real or not was washed away in a matter of seconds.
Wow.
And like I said, I'd already been talking to Bill White, and y'all, by the time my truck stopped, I had my phone in my hand, and I was calling Bill White. I made a phone call to that man while I was sitting in the road, stopped in that big truck, looking through the woods. And I didn't pull the air brakes, but I shut the truck off where I could try to hear it and see if I could hear it running off or anything. And I was on the phone, and I told Bill, I said, man, I know I wasn't making any sense because I was so excited. He said, I made sense of it. He said, but you was excited, all right. He said, but it's understandable. He said, you had been dealing with this stuff for all these years, and you finally got to see them. So, yeah, that was when I got baptized in fire by Bigfoot.
Wow.
That's amazing. You know, we have talked to other people, and we've brought up the fact on our show before about the hair, or what the consistency of the hair of the Bigfoot is. And I had thought of possibly why nobody gets a clear image of it is because how it reflects the light. Like you were talking about how it had that sheen to it, or that different color because of the light. So I'm just wondering if there's anything with their hair that would reflect light to kind of make them blurry or hazy or dark shadow in the woods.
Yeah, but seriously, y'all, this thing looked like Fabio had just got out of his hair appointment and got it dyed black. I mean, it was the blackest black ink you could ever imagine. And it wasn't this one, the hair wasn't like I've heard people say, its hair was this long and it was flowing, and
Right.
that one wasn't. This one, it looked like the hair may have been 3 or 4 inches long. It wasn't like little furry, like it looked well groomed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It looked very well groomed.
Wow.
Well, I think it was Jessica's show last night. She had Cryptidville on, and he was explaining that they look clean. They don't look like they're muddy or have grass or anything in it.
Not matted.
The hair is clean.
Well, I mean, I could see where it depends on where you were at and what they were doing, what terrain you were in, what the weather was. Yeah, but y'all, where I was at, I mean, that was a big pine thicket on both sides, and a lot of big hardwoods. We don't really have any swamps here, but y'all, that was just unreal. It just, it looked like it would be like taking a prize black stallion. I mean, what you would think a black stallion would look like, as far as the shine. That's the way the hair looked. I mean, it was like it was not really like sparkling, but it was just super. It looked real oily. Does that make sense? Like if you got a dog and you wipe them down and they look oily looking, how it's shiny. That's the way that looks.
Kind of like horses when you've worked them and they're all sweaty and they're shiny and you brush them out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it looked like.
Because I would think if Bigfoot is out in the briar and in the brush, it would have burrs all over it, have matted fur, but obviously you're saying it looked perfect almost. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought about this too. You know, you take which I'm sure a deer's hair is not as long as what a Bigfoot's hair is, but you take a deer, look at most of your deer. They're not muddy. They're not nasty. Their hair is all, looks like it's been brushed. It'll be just slick and laid down. That's the way this thing looked. I mean, especially that one, its hair looked like it had been to a groomer.
Wow. I can't explain that. It's just doesn't make sense to me if you're out there in the woods to have good hair like that.
Well, we even go walking and hiking, and you get stuff all over your pant legs and your socks, and so how do they walk through and they have nothing on them? It's just, there's too many reports of them just being perfectly combed out and clean.
Yeah, but y'all, all the ones that I've seen here, the ones that I've seen have been black. I mean, I've not seen anything black. My buddy Alan, one that he saw here, it was more of a gray, and he said it had some, and this is what was weird. He said it had like spots. It'd be like a spot that big, it'd be white. And then over here it'd have another spot, be like a few spots on it was like white places. But I've got really, I'm talking about real good eyewitnesses of reputable people, honest people that has told me that they've seen some that's kind of a reddish brown. Several people seen them that were gray, but majority of them's been black. Like I said, the ones that I've saw really as good as I could have saw one was, they've all been black. The one of them that I saw here in my yard, it was black. That's been not even a year ago. It was a little over a year ago, because I think it was the last week in March. It was right before we had our Walkerz meet and greet at the LBL. It was the week before. And I pulled up and had my headlights on bright. And where Alan had seen that one was over here. I got a propane tank right past this wall. And every time I'd pull up, I'd look over there real good. But by the time I focused back in front of my truck, it dawned on me what it was. It was like a void in the woodline. And I've got a security light. But it was more like a void than me seeing it till the thing moved. And when it moved, it went from like standing still. It wasn't like you watched it exhale. It was like it was gone. But I watched it cover 30-something feet, I guess, and I was getting the side profile of it. But the thing ran within 5 feet of my porch post, and the holds the top of my porch up the roof of it. And judging by the roof of that porch, and when that thing went by it, that one was 9 foot or better. It was a big boy. I mean, it was massive.
Wow.
But it was black. It was jet black. The one Coonbo saw that one here in my driveway shortly after that, a couple of months. I think it may have been in end of May or around June. Now, he said that one wasn't a very big one. It was only like 6.5 foot tall. It was rather slim, but it was, he came over and done a podcast from here, used my internet, and when he went to leave, I just stepped back in. I watched him back up, turn around. I stepped in, shut this door. In just a few minutes, he was calling me and said, "You wouldn't believe what I just saw." I was like, "What?" He said, "There was a darn booger across your driveway right in front of my truck when I was leaving." He said, "You couldn't have been back in the house for just a second." So we figured it was a juvenile. Then my wife saw one month and a half ago, I guess, something like that. Her my little girl turned around in her SUV. She backed up to the Woodland, and there's a big pine tree. And she was looking at her dash camera, seeing where she could back up to. And there was one standing beside, kind of a little bit behind, but to the side of a big pine. She said she just saw the big silhouette. She backed up within probably 10 or 12 feet of it and had it lit up with her reverse lights. And she said it just like there's the tree and it's standing by it. She said when it dawned on her, it was like, oh my God, it just sidestepped, just stepped behind that pine and was gone. So she just put it in drive and started out and called me. She's like, I just saw one. So, I mean, we've had, and Misty was here. It's been a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago now, I guess, at least a year and a half. Me and her and Kundo had walked outside. We heard something over close to my gas tank. We all looked, saw red eye shine, and just a kind of a dim silhouette take off. We heard it take off running down through the woods. So that wasn't a great view of one, but yeah, we saw something that night. But I've had a lot of people here that's had experiences that people that I know and trust that I've let come here and stay. They've had a lot of experiences.
It's amazing how such a gigantic entity, that can jump and run and throw big rocks as accurate as possible. I mean, better than a baseball pitcher, actually. I mean, a professional baseball pitcher, that's what kind of accuracy they have. So if they wanted to hit you, they could hit you. If they wanted to miss you, they get as close as they can. It's just almost supernatural as far as our experience in the human realm anyway.
Well, I've actually been hit by a hickory nut one through.
Oh.
I was in a ladder stand at Upperfield that I talked about. I was in that stand and I was sitting there, and when you're deer hunting, that's the main thing is being still. I was sitting there and had my rifle laying, the barrel laying on a railing over here, and the buttstock was laying in my lap. So the receiver was kind of in my lap. And I'm sitting there just kind of cutting my eyes, looking around the field, not turning my head. And I'm watching this field over there was about 2.5 acres. And I'm looking all over this field. Well, there's something goes whizzing by my head. Now I'm talking about it missed my head about that far. It goes flying right over my shoulder. And just right, I heard it when it went by. And I caught a glimpse of it. And I see it go, it's still going out at an angle, going up. And then it arches and hits out in the field and goes to rolling. And I'm fixed on it going, basically in my head, it's like, what the hell was that? And I'm looking at it. And about the time that I figure out what it is, something hits me right here where your neck hits you between your shoulders, where your back starts. Something hit, which I had on a winter jacket or a coat. It hit that hoodie and it bounced and went straight up in the air and it came back down and it landed on my rifle. And it was a hickory nut about that big.
Wow.
When it did that, I turned around and I'm looking. I stand up with my rifle. I couldn't figure out where the thing was. Never could figure out where it was. But that thing threw one. It went right by my head, and the next one hit me in the back of the neck right there. And they'd do stuff like that. They'd come around the field, throw stuff out in the field. I seen one day through a tree limb. It was shaped instead of being straight. It was about like that. It's about like this part of my arm. It was nearly like a boomerang. The thing was about that big around. If you stood it up, it would have probably been 4 foot long. The thing probably would have weighed 20 pounds. I hear something flipping in the pine trees about 25, 30 yards from me. I hear the limbs, something hitting the limbs. And I look, and here's this boomerang-shaped log that big around is going whoop, 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 spinning end over end. It's going on a big arch coming up. Comes out of the tree line, goes out in the field and lands, and goes flipping across the field and falls over.
Wow.
I've been in some of these shooting houses. You be sitting there, you start having stuff hit the wall behind you, and my shooting houses don't have a window in the back. They just got them on each end in the front. It ain't stuff falling out of the tree because this is hitting the back wall, and I mean hitting it hard, like rocks or sticks. They'll start pelting the shooting house. But that gets a little unnerving because you're thinking, well, okay, they're trying to make me come out. Well, what are they going to do when I come out?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine the strength to throw that big of a log like a boomerang.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. What's really cool, I mean, the main thing about these things is, you know, I cussed them for a long time, and I don't trust them. I'm not as scared of them as I have been. I still don't trust them because I know how big they are, and I've seen evidence of what they could do if they wanted to. And I don't have any trust for them. And the first several years of my encounters with these things, it wasn't good. I mean, these things done everything they could to run me off. I mean, they were belligerent to me and my dad and my buddy Alan and a couple more people that went over with me, and they didn't like us. They kept trying to run us off, and then I kind of accidentally made peace with them, and things got better. And I think that's why here I have so many encounters that where I've had these other encounters, we'll just call it less than a mile and a half. And I'm still hunting this main area. I'm not hunting that one piece of property because my cousin sold it to somebody else. But I'm hunting a piece of property that's a quarter of a mile away. It's just across the river on the other side. And I'm dealing with the same ones there as I was across the river. And honestly, I believe that these things they probably know what I look like. They probably know what I smell like. They know what my vehicle sounds like. They know where I'm going to be. And I think they put two and two together. Well, here's this guy we're seeing in the woods at our place. We know where his truck's at. We see him going in and out. And they come over here and just let me know, hey, we know where you are. And that's kind of what it feels like.
Right.
So, but the wonderful thing about this is I guess the silver lining in the thundercloud is all the wonderful people that I've got put in my life doing this. I mean, It's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, like, I went for years, wouldn't talk to anybody. I mean, I didn't want to talk to nobody. It was a very private thing because I was afraid of the ridicule and people, just, how people are.
Right.
And I wouldn't handle that very good. But then Bill White, I met Bill White. Bill White gave me a lot of advice and talked to him, and I was still very private. And then a guy in Oklahoma got me to do a podcast. He talked me into that, and I did a podcast with him. And then I went for years, wouldn't talk to anybody else. And then Coonbo got me, which I'd met Coonbo through Bill White. Coonbo kind of adopted me, I guess. And I got brought into his research group, his immediate friends. And I learned a lot from him and Troy Allen and Cheryl Corntassel and, Jimmy Osmer and some of those guys. And, they answered a lot of questions I had. And we kind of had some questions that popped up for all of us. But I just, and then through them, that's how I met. Coonbo got me to go to the LBL. They were having a meet and greet and for Sawdust Beast, and I went up there with Coonbo. I got to meet several people. I didn't meet a whole lot of people because, like I said, I was still pretty private with it. But Coonbo wanted me to go, and I went. Well, then I got talking to Mark and Larry, and then they talked me into coming on doing a show with them. And then next thing I know, we had done about 10 episodes, and then that's how Spencer got my number and contacted me and got me to come on Woodwalkers, and him and Misty kind of roped me in and baited me up. Here I am. But no,
That kind of sounds like us. We had an interest in this stuff. We were watching like Jessica Jones and Cryptid Huntress and other shows, and we started knowing people in chat and starting to actually know them off screen too by contacting them and talking. And it's just a great community. I mean, everybody's so kind and loving and welcoming. I mean, it's amazing how welcoming these people are.
Well, what warms my heart, I mean, look, y'all, it's like I've got a big family that I didn't know I had, and I didn't know that I needed them, but now I realize that I needed these people. I mean, I really did, because I was dealing with a lot of stuff that I was struggling dealing with, and been blessed to meet some of the greatest people I've ever known. Spencer's like a brother. Misty is absolutely like a sister that I always wanted. And we got Roger joined in with us. We adopted Roger.
You adopted Roger?
We've still been arguing who's going to pay child support on him. We don't know that yet. But y'all, it's but just everybody in the chat right here. I mean, like Gary Spikes. I mean, y'all, Gary Spikes is one of the greatest people I've ever been around. Genuine to the core. It warms my soul. Jeffrey Arrington's all the time telling me how that him hearing me talk was what gave him the courage to come out and talk about what happened, with him and got him started. Well, y'all, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, but just all these people that I've met, I mean, we've met all these people, and like I said, we've met them online. We've got to talk to them in private. It ain't just a show. I mean, I could read every name on that list right there. Billy Schilling. I mean, Leanne. I mean, all of Patrick Noble. I mean, y'all, my daughter goes to meet and greet, and she's surrounded by 120 new aunts and uncles. And I mean, it's wild, y'all. But the wonderful thing about this group is everybody is so open. They're so kind. And most of the hardcore members in this group, it's not just people that are interested. This is people that's had their own encounters. Like PJ. Oh my God, PJ. I love PJ to death because I know what PJ's going through at her home because I'm going through it here. And, you got Flat Rock. All these people are so, I can't put it in words what these people mean to me. I mean, I just can't. Because it's so phenomenal. And the more I look at it, that all this wasn't by accident. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it's like these people were either I was brought in their life or they were brought in mine. Right. And that's kind of how all of us feel about it. I mean, Pyro, look, I mean, most people know how wonderful dude Pyro is. Lord, it's unreal. All these folks. And that's what I looked at it, and what made me decide to really open up and talk about it and do what we're doing right here today is because I got feeling guilty, and I spent a lot of my life. I spent a lot of my life helping others, law enforcement, rescue squad, search and rescue. I've donated years and years and years doing that. I've done CPR on more people than I can name. Done a lot of stuff. I've bandaged people up with stab wounds, gunshot victims. I ain't gonna tell how many people I've helped put in helicopters to med flight out. I've done a lot of stuff in my life to help people, and that's my true passion is to help folks. And I got thinking about it. Me being, I guess the word would be dubious or, really scared to come out and talk to people and share what I had went through. I wasn't helping anybody. And I thought, well, if I can at least get up here and be brave enough to tell people what I've experienced, maybe that'll help somebody else. Maybe they'll say, well, here's somebody else that's going through, or they've encountered what I've encountered, and they're talking about it. And y'all, the longer you bottle that stuff up, it's like cancer. It eats on you. And if you can't open it up and vent with somebody, it's going to get bad. Because I was struggling hard with it. I mean,
It was a few years ago. I mentioned to Garrow, I said, I wish I had someone to talk to about this experiences that I'm having. And the two close friends I had were churchgoers. Well, they weren't the ones that would believe me of the things that I was hearing and seeing. And then we started getting more closer to this community and gotten to know people. Then I kind of went, I need to share this with others to help others also. And we started a podcast, and we've been doing it for 2 years now. And this community, like you said, we're all family. This is the most closest, friendliest community I've ever met. And we all support each other. We've all had experiences, and we don't look at each other like we're all crazy. We believe each other.
And look, there's some of these people on here that's in chat that I've not been blessed with to meet in person yet.
Yeah,
but they're great, wonderful people. They'll message me. And it ain't just about Bigfoot. It's about, hey, I messed my leg up. They're messaging me. Hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? What can we send you? I'm like, y'all, I'm good. But just knowing that people's thinking about you, and somebody that you can talk to. I mean, like Judy right there. I mean, my goodness, wonderful, awesome people. And our meet and greet, y'all, it blows my mind. We had people from all over the country show up. I'm talking about, here we are in Tennessee and Kentucky, land between the lakes. We had people probably come from 30 different states to get there. I mean, we had, David and Dee Dee Blaylock, they flew from Coos Bay, Oregon to Nashville, rented a car, and then came. I mean, they came from like 2,800 miles to come hang out with a bunch of people they'd never met in person and camp out with us. Right. And I'll tell you what, if we was having another meet and greet and you told David and Dee Dee they couldn't come, you'd be in a fight. They would. I mean, like David and Dee Dee, wonderful, awesome people. All these folks are. And that's, to me, it ain't as much about the Bigfoot, and it's not up to me, or it don't weigh on me to prove these to anybody. That's not why I'm doing it. Right. I know they're real. These people that's had encounters, I don't have to convince them they're real. They know they're real, just like I know. I mean, people that are interested and come at it with a honest intention to be open-minded, they don't have to believe me. They don't have to believe anything I say. But don't ridicule me when I'm spilling my guts to you about what I've lived through, and these other people have lived through, and what we're still dealing with. I mean, it's hard to explain to anybody that hasn't had an encounter of some kind. And I don't mean seeing one. I'm talking about seeing the evidence, whether you find a track in the middle of nowhere that in your heart, there's no way, no chance somebody would have faked it. If you're out and you're hearing these screams that sound the volume of a train horn, that you're going, there is no known animal that should be able to do that. Right. But the damn thing just screamed so hard, my eardrums may be busted, that you can't, look at the evidence. Look, like I said, me doing law enforcement, there's enough evidence, hard evidence, that you could convict somebody of murder. There's enough evidence to prove that Bigfoot's there. The only thing lacking is a body laying on a slab. Right. But it just, like I said, the DNA, the fingerprints, the handprints, the footprints, the hair samples, the eyewitness encounters. People say, well, man, them people's a little flighty, they make up something. I don't know if I'd believe a person like that. Well, okay, do you want a preacher? Do you want a school teacher? Do you want a fireman, police officer? You want a seated judge? Do you want a rocket scientist? You tell me the profession of somebody that you would trust with their word. Give me about an hour, and I'll set somebody down in front of you that's that profession. Yep. I mean, okay. What do you want? It boggles my mind. I understand why people don't. I don't hold anything against anybody if they say, well, I don't believe because I hadn't saw. Okay, cool. Well, don't tell me that I didn't see what I did see and that I hadn't experienced what I experienced when I've got thousands and thousands of people that's had the same pretty much experience that I had.
Right.
And the thing about it, y'all, if you take 10,000 witnesses, what I told people, let's say you had 10,000 reports. Well, if only one, just one out of that 10,000 was factual, that means it's fact. It don't take but one.
Right.
And I got it. There is people, I got it. There's people that try to get notoriety or fame or make money. I don't know what. I mean, there's a laundry list of things that they could do to falsify statements, to lie, to embellish, to fake stuff, hoax stuff. Sure. But majority of these people, no. These people are looking for answers. Because I've seen the people break down and cry. I've seen the tears roll down their cheeks. I've seen them hesitate. I've seen people that I've had to ask multiple times over longer than 2 years, and finally earn their trust for them to open up and tell me what they had experienced. And I've seen them shaking. I've seen them their breathing accelerate. I've seen their you can see the veins in their neck bulging.
Mm-hmm.
And in their story, you can hear it in their voice, the excitement and almost the pain of reliving the experience. You can't, most Oscar-winning actors couldn't do that. So,
it's amazing how something is common for everybody. Bigfoot, you wouldn't think that would be a big attraction, as far as people being able to open up. But this community is so loving and kind that it's almost like a group for like you would have for alcoholism. Not to put it that with it, but it's like a support group.
Yeah, Bigfoot.
Psychological, because it affects you emotionally and psychological, especially your first experience ever. I mean, that is just mind blowing to a lot of people, and it might put them in shock. And they need an avenue to open up to people, and that's what these communities are all about. Is to give you that chance to get that off your chest with people that have the common or the same belief.
And they won't laugh at you.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, look, that's one thing about our groups and all the groups. It's like I call it our network of groups. We don't put up with that. We get every now and then have a troll come through, but it's kind of like somebody screams off with their head and they get the old ban and delete button. And and I hate to have to say that, but I welcome people that are skeptics, as long as they're respectable or respectful, I guess y'all say. Because I've had skeptics go hunting with me and come out of the woods with a whole different attitude. I'm talking about life-changing events, and that's the ones that I like to see have an encounter is somebody that's a skeptic. Mm-hmm. Because life changes. You can't get it back to where you were before.
Well, I was surprised how many policemen are in this community.
There's a bunch of us.
A bunch. Yes, there is a bunch that is either used to be police or they're still currently policemen that are in this community.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Wait till you have a man tell you that he can't talk to people in his area because he's a seated judge. He's like, man, I'm so proud I came and met y'all because I can talk with y'all. And I don't have anybody I can talk to about it. It'll affect my job.
Right.
That's astounding. Astounding.
Right.
Like I said, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, you name it. I mean, there's somebody, odds are, in the group. Cancer surgeons. We got a guy that's a retired cancer surgeon. He saw one like 30 years ago. I mean, he'll tell you straight up what he saw. I mean, what background do they want somebody to be from? What profession? It's amazing. And it's everything from biker gangs to preachers. I mean, you name it, across the spectrum. Everybody that's had encounters.
Well, years ago,
Absolutely.
when I used to go to church, I wouldn't mention UFOs, Bigfoot, anything like that. That's a no-no. I come to this community several years ago. Majority of people in this community are Christians. And they just, they need someone to talk to and share with, and there's a reason why we all came together like this. Yeah, we can share things
Yeah.
without being ridiculed, and we're
I
not
know
all
I've
crazy.
got, I know I got a long beard and inked up both arms, but everything on this arm, if you can see it, that right there is a Knights Templar Crusader with his shield, and this arm's covered in Bible verses all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
That's what my whole right arm. That's what I'm talking about, from right here all the way down, all the way around it. It's all Bible verses. Because I know the Lord's real. I know the Lord's real. I had a miraculous healing. I broke my leg in 7 places, and I heard a voice tell me, said, "Do not worry any longer. You will be okay."
Hmm.
They x-rayed my leg. It was broke in 7 places, and they was figuring on at minimum 8-hour surgery. And I laid there. It took them an hour after the x-rays to get the CT machine ready, because this was late in the evening. They got the CT machine ready, and they done a regular CT, and they done it with a contrast dye. After they done that, the surgeon come in and told me, he said, "I can't explain what happened." I'll give you the short version. He said, "What happened in your leg's impossible, but it happened." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I was planning on doing an 8-hour surgery using a titanium rod, 2 titanium plates, 12 screws to put you together if I could." And he said, where one of the big chunks of bone was turned sideways, he said a chunk of bone big as those 2 fingers, instead of this way, it was twisted and turned flat. He said where it was laying in the x-rays, it should have severed all the arteries and veins going to my lower leg at my knee. He said the x-rays, he said, "How long was it between the x-rays and the CT scans?" I looked at my wife. I said, "Probably about an hour." She said, "Yeah, it was about an hour." He said, "Look, everything that was obliterated in your leg, it didn't just break, it twisted and broke. And it just twisted the bones." He said, "Everything in your leg moved, twisted, and turned and lined up exactly correctly." I said, "So when's surgery?" He said, "Listen to me." He said, "I was hoping that I could put it together." And he said, "Your blood flow should have been severed." He said, "I really thought I was going to have to do a surgery of an amputation, because it'd been a couple of hours since your injury. And if the blood flow had been, cut off that long, the tissue was done dying and we was going to have to amputate." He said, "But when we put the dye in that CT," he said, "I can't find a drop of blood that's not in a vessel or a vein." He said, "There's nothing damaged." He said, "You shouldn't even," and y'all, I didn't even have a bruise. My leg didn't even bruise. But now the voice I heard didn't say jump up and run, you're healed. It said, "Do not worry any longer, you will be okay."
Wow.
And look, they did not touch me with a scalpel. Didn't touch me with a scalpel. Put me in a giant leg brace that I stayed in for 6 months. And then I went back to walking. And that surgeon, every time that I went back to him for a checkup, I'd go in every 2 weeks at x-ray. I'd walk into it was an orthopedic surgeon. I'd walk into his office and I felt like a celebrity. I'd walk in and all the staff would be whispering and stuff. And I had some of them would come up to me and go, "You're him." I said, "Well, I don't know. I may be. I don't know who him is." I said, "You're that guy." I said, "Well, I don't know. Well, who is that guy?" They said, "You're the guy that got the miracle." I said, "Yeah, I'm that guy." They said, "Well, what do you think happened?" I said, "The Lord put me back together." I said, "All I know is when he told me, 'Do not worry any longer,' I didn't have another care in the world, because I heard a voice out of thin air as I'm laying in the mud. I'm laying in the mud waiting on the ambulance. I'd fall off a ladder. My leg folded about an inch below my knee. It folded 90 degrees the wrong way when it collapsed. Broke both bones. Broke the fibula, the little bone. It sheared off, not just across. It broke and come across in 2 pieces. It split long ways. And then the tibia bone, it broke in 6 places and just exploded. And the surgeon told me, he said, "I've been a surgeon for over 30 years. And he said, that's the worst broken single bone I've ever seen." And then he tells me that I can't explain how it happened because it's scientifically impossible. physically and scientifically impossible for your leg to go back together like it did. And he said, we're not, he said, as long as those bones don't move, there's no need to do surgery. And y'all, they didn't. They didn't. And then like a little over a year later, my ankle collapsed, which that wound up being complications from diabetes medicine I was on, made my bones turn to chalk. And but yeah, I wound up having to have surgery on it. But when I broke my leg, y'all are looking at a guy that had a miraculous healing where the bones went back together, and I can't explain that to anybody.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
So look here, I'm a Christian that knows Bigfoot's real because I've seen them. And look, I've had to change my opinion on what these things are. I still don't know what they are.
Right, same here.
Look, I'm 100% sure they're meat, blood, and bone, but they got some other powers that I can't explain.
Right.
I mean, if I went into that, we'd be here for 2 hours, more or 3 hours more. But
keep going.
We've had lots of shows where we talk about the supernatural and Bigfoot and cryptids itself. You know, I mean, some of them have these, whether they're dimensional or, you know, you can just go down these rabbit holes forever, and sometimes it explains what you see or what explains what happens, or because we all know that everybody's experiences aren't all the same, so you can't just put your experience in here and say, okay, that's all there ever is, because everybody has such vast experiences, whether, like you said, whether it's hair color, shape, size. I mean, it is the whole gambit.
Yeah, the sky's the limit for me as far as how these things can act. I mean, I think they've got as many different personalities as people do. I mean, not every person you walk up to is kind and nice and wanting the best for you. I mean, not everybody's going to cut your throat either. But there is a few serial killers floating around out there. So why would these things be any different? I mean, that's just like pit bulls. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that's got pit bulls. Them things are big old babies.
Yeah.
But then you watch the news and you see some kid got ate by one. I mean, everything's different. So,
with you being a Christian, have you ever thought or heard of the story about Jacob and Esau being twins, and Esau was actually red and hairy, and then Jacob had to put the fur on? And to me, a blind man would know the difference between an extra hairy man and animal fur. So are you kind of thinking possibly that Esau could have been a Sasquatch, and that's where some of the started?
At least
the story. Yeah.
Let's put it like this. That gets talked about a lot.
Yeah.
That gets talked about. Let's put it like this. Me and Kumbo kicked that around a lot about maybe even on down descendant from there, descendants of the Nephilim. I don't know. I mean, look, I'm open to all kind of suggestions, because here's the deal. There is I don't care what you've been around, there's nobody's an expert on these things. Nobody.
Right.
Nobody. I mean, people's got accounts they've took that they've recorded. They've heard people tell their stories, but all this is theory. We don't have any way to prove any of it. None of it.
Right.
I mean, but now I enjoy talking to people that's got different, let's just say different opinions than I've got. I mean, we'll get together sometimes, and that's the one thing that a lot of people don't see on the shows, because we don't usually do it on a show. But it may be kind of like us, talking here. There may be 4, 5, 6 of us, and we're spitballing. It's like we got a basketball we're in a circle. We're bouncing it from one person to the next.
Right.
And somebody's got an idea, and they blurt it out. Well, that may change. If there's 5 of us, the other 4, it might be something that's never crossed our mind. And this person's stuck with that theory. They've gone as far as they can go. Well, they throw it out there for the other 4. Well, everybody else is pondering what they said. Well, 1 or 2 out of that 4 may say, well, okay. Well, what if you think about it this way? And you're just bouncing these ideas back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
And sometimes it's amazing at some of the things that you can come up with. So I'm open to all kind of things as far as ideas and theories, and I'm not the guy that gets offended. I'm not the guy that gets upset. Guess what? Somebody can have their theory that these things are nothing but a half monkey, half man, they could say whatever. I don't care. That may be they may have had an encounter. In the encounter they had, they may have not had any of the woo factor to it. Because I've had a lot of encounters, there was no woo factor. But I've also had the encounters where there was an extreme level of woo factor. So I try not to tell people, and I'm damn sure not going to argue with somebody over what they experiences versus what I experienced. I'll just, respectfully say, well, what happened to me was a little different.
Right.
And if they want to hear it, that's fine. But, I don't get offended. Now if somebody wants to belittle me or start ridiculing me, that's when I'm going to get sideways and the redneck's going to blow out both ears and I'm game on. But, I don't, because here's my deal. I'm not going to ridicule somebody, and I'm not going to be ridiculed. Right. And that's another wonderful thing about this group is there's so many people that look at it like I do. Well, if I don't agree with somebody, odds are they're not going to know it, because I don't have to agree with them for me to know that they're serious. I'm not saying that what they're saying is a lie. I'm just saying that what they experienced is different than what I did. Gary Spikes, that's 100%.
Yep.
Nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Nail on the head. Because not everybody's experience. That goes back, not all of them's the same. And that goes back to like people here. You can live out in the country here, and it may be totally different than living out in the country in California or in Texas or in Illinois, or if you lived in the country out in the country in Canada. You may be country folk, but you're a country folk from a different area. We'll have a lot of similarities, but stuff that I do may be ass backwards than what they done in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all may look at me and say, man, that don't even make no sense. Well, that's the way we've done it for 200 years. So it may not be, neither one of us is wrong. It's just we got a different way to go from A to Z.
Right.
Yep. That's what's so wonderful about talking with all these people that have experiences, because there's always that one golden nugget in their story that fits what you've experienced but couldn't explain. All of a sudden it's like, oh man, that makes sense. I wonder if that's what it is.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, guys, that's just like everybody says, well, mine look like this. They look at people, look at the difference, the way people look.
Mm-hmm.
Why would these things be different? I mean,
right.
look at deer. Yeah, just there's one thing, deer, squirrels, whatever. Look across the United States at squirrels. Look at how different squirrels can look from state to state or area to area, right. Or even deer from state to state or area to area. They're different.
Right.
And that's the reason everybody, I guess it's human nature that for us to understand something, we got to have this little bucket that for us to put it in our head, we got to get everything we gather. We got to poke it in this bucket, and we got to put the lid on it. And it's got to be all shined up and pretty, and then we can put it in there, and this is what we're holding on to. Well, what freaks us out is when we got something that's this big and it won't fit in this lid. You can't just take that and push it over here and say, well, it don't fit, so we're not worried about knowing it. Well, guess what? Just because it won't fit in your little bucket don't mean that it ain't real, and it don't mean that didn't happen. It means that you got to enlarge. You got to go from something this size. You got to get your knowledge a little bigger to get all that stuff to poke in there. You can't just say, well, this is as big as I'm going. I'm not going any bigger than this little candle bucket right here. This is all we're going. If it don't fit, hogwash. Nope, can't do that, y'all. That's not fair to anybody.
Right. Absolutely.
We all have the right to have our own opinions and our own thoughts of things. And if you don't agree, that's no problem.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, y'all, there's everyday life. All of us come across people that we don't agree with. Mm-hmm. That don't mean they got to hate them. That don't mean they got to hate us. It's just, right. Hey, let's all get along and be open-minded. But it's just, for some reason, like in society now, it's been preached to people that, well, if they don't think like you do, that you got to hate on them. No, we don't have to. Nope. I can have my opinion. Y'all can have y'all's, and we can all be happy.
It doesn't mean one person's wrong. We all have our own opinions, and no one's right, no one's wrong.
Yep. And like I said, even just coming from different areas of the country, just your location, your background, and look, you could grow up in the same. You could have 10 kids that grew up in the same area, went to the same high school, and you'll have 10 different opinions on what they like and don't like about the area. There'll be people that grew up here. They live in the same area within 2 or 3 miles of me, went to the same school, shopped the same stores. Parents act similar. But some of those kids, as soon as they're out on their own, they can't wait to leave.
Mm-hmm.
They can't wait to leave. And then some people will be like, well, I mean, I like living here, but I may would live over there. Or then you got people like me, it's like, I don't ever want to leave. You've got different experiences in the same place. It's all perspective. It's all perspective. And you got to be open-minded.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I mean, it's no different. Like you were just saying. I grew up in this town, small farming community, and there was people in my class and other classes that couldn't wait to leave this small community. Yeah. Then you have people from the big city that can't wait to get here to experience the peace and quiet and the easy living. Or it's not always that way, but it seems that way compared to a city or a major metropolitan area.
Yeah. Look, y'all. I'll take. You want to throw somebody out of their element? Take me to a big town. I can't handle it. I mean, here, the closest things to me is Huntsville and Birmingham. I feel like I need a dadgum passport to get punched to go over there. I mean, it's about an hour drive either direction, north or south for me. South to Birmingham and north to Huntsville. I'm kind of in between. No, I'm out of my element. I'm about. You put me out here in the woods, I'm way more comfortable than I am in town. I have major distrust for people like that. I mean, there's a whole lot better chance of me getting harmed or being in a conflict in those big cities than I am out here in the woods. Even I know what's here and here all the time. Yeah, I'm way more comfortable here than I am in the woods or in the big city.
Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, I avoid big cities and I avoid people. I'd rather hang out in my backyard with squirrels and skunks and possums than people.
Yeah.
You just can't trust some people these days.
Yeah. But y'all, like I said, I told y'all about 2 of them I saw. I saw the first one was the road crossing. And I saw that one out here in my yard. A few years before, in between those, I can't remember what year it was. The last one that I laid eyes on was one in the yard. And then about 1.25 miles over here on down the highway, I was coming back. I'd been out one night. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I was coming back home or coming over to my cabin, and I topped the rise, and it's like a hilltop and a swag and another little hilltop. And from the top of the hill to the next hill is about 200 yards, like if you were in the air. And it's about a 30-foot drop. Like if you pull a string from hilltop to hilltop to the bottom of the swag, it's about 30-foot drop. When I came over the hill, my headlights shined down in the bottom about 100 yards from me. And y'all, I'm running about 55 miles an hour. I see 2 eyes that they look like they're bigger than a golf ball. They're big. And these things are red. I'm talking about like a real orangey, deep orangey red. And they're attached to a 8+ foot tall creature covered in black hair. And it's striding across the highway. And it's going toward my left. And it's on the center line. So it's done cross my lane. And it's got to cross the opposing lane. And the thing just kind of turned its upper body, just kind of like twisted a little and straight back up. Took a couple of steps, and it jumped off of an embankment about 8 foot high, and it landed. And I watched it go across the cleared spot on the shoulder of the road, and it went up into the big pine timber there. But I got a pretty good look at that one because, like I said, when I first saw it, it was about 100 yards. And I was about 55 miles an hour going toward it. And I got a pretty good look at it. Look, the ones I've seen, I've yet to get a good look where I could say its nose looked like this, its mouth was shaped this way, this is what its eyes look like. Because the ones I've seen have either been like a profile or like a quick look at me, or it was so far away when it was facing me, I couldn't make out specific small details. And that's what bothers me now is I still don't know. I couldn't sit here and explain its nose look like this, its eyes look like that, its ears look like this. I can't do that. I can tell you what its legs, its thighs, its back, its body, its overall build look like, its hair. But as far as fine details on the face, I'd have to make something up. And I'm not doing that to anybody.
Right. I was gonna ask you, have you ever experienced eye glow compared to eye shine?
I've not seen, well, I've had some stuff, but I can't say that's what it was. I had something at Hollins at the meet and greet we had down there at Talladega National Forest. I still don't know what that was. I had something that came on, but it was just one. And that thing looked like it was that big around, and it was within 40, 50 feet. But it came on just like it blinked on, and it was small. And that thing got about, it's like it swelled up. Stayed that way like one Mississippi, and went whoop, and was gone.
Oh.
I don't know what it was. There was no light shining in there. The woods was black as a dungeon, and I still can't explain that. Now, like out here, when me and Misty, we saw him off my porch, could that have been a little bit from the porch light, a little tiny reflection? Sure, but it was almost like a cigar smoldering is what that looked like. It wasn't like projecting light or like glowing real bright on those. I've seen that a few times when I always call it eye shine. Now, as far as a big light shining for them to reflect back, this was more like not even like a cigar you were taking a draw of. It was like it was smoldering.
Okay.
And that big, and just kind of a dim reddish orangey look. And y'all, another one that I saw, I walked up on in the woods. I was deer hunting, and I'd walked through some big pine timber and got in some hardwoods. And I knew when I got to those big hardwoods, it was overlooking from a ridge down a slope, and it like a valley, a hollow that went down. It flattened out just a little bit and then went back up another big hill. But I walked in there, and I was really quiet going through the pine straw. Didn't make any noise. Wind was in my favor. And I took about 2 or 3 steps in the leaves. And right down in front of me, kind of a little bit to my left, in front of me, down the bottom of that hollow where it was flat, it sounded like you ran through a brush pile with a car. I don't know if the thing had maybe a stick structure and had leaves up on it, or if I don't know if it was laying down and raked leaves on it. All I know is I hear this like an explosion of leaves and sticks and limbs, and just like this stuff just comes out of nowhere, just off from the ground. And I'm looking in front of me. When I hear it, I see something move peripheral, and when I turn, all this debris is flying through the air, coming out like a big ball, just going everywhere. It comes away from it, it starts coming down toward just on an arch, and it starts falling. Well, in the middle of where all this stuff explodes out from, this thing just like rises up. Now, I don't mean from like flat on the ground. I mean from probably, I'll say from 4 foot tall to over 8 foot tall. And this thing is black as black can get. And this thing it comes up just like it's lunging, just explodes out. And that thing starts running on 2 legs. And I'm watching it go away from me, and it's going up this opposing hill. And it's not running straight because of all these trees, this big open hardwood timber. The thing is like running, it's darting back and forth, and going back like this, going up the hill. And I watch that thing run over 100 yards going up that steep slope. And it's just, the legs are pounding the ground, and I hear the leaves crunching under it. Y'all, you couldn't have took a professional motocross rider on the fastest dirt bike ever and let him start off and outrun that thing up that mountain. It was going up that hill like nothing. And I watched it go up, and when the hill crested over, it went over that crest and went out of sight down through the timber, was gone. But I'd actually snuck up I was within 100 yards of it. But I still don't, because I try to replay that through my mind. I don't know if I wonder really if it may have had like a teepee structure or something built and had all this brush around it. And then I guess maybe it heard me and saw me. It's like, oh, hell, I got to get out of here. And because I was kind of going that way toward it. But when that thing, I'm talking about, it absolutely exploded. It would be like if you buried a kid in a pile of, like a garbage can full of leaves, and he just jumped out to scare somebody. Right. It's just debris. Debris was just this big oval ball of debris just fluttering. Leaves are just falling everywhere, and sticks are going through the air. But that thing absolutely exploded out of that, whatever it was. I don't know if it was a brush top. I don't know if it was something that it had made up there. But I didn't go down there and investigate, because as soon as the damn thing went out of sight, I whirled around and come back out of the woods. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that'll kind of get y'all up to speed a little bit on some of the encounters I've had.
All right.
Since you were a hunter, since you were a little boy, and then compared to just the last few years, do you see a huge increase compared to any activity when you were younger?
You're talking about with the deer?
Sightings of the Bigfoot and just activity. Do you think it's been increasing, these last few years compared to when you were younger?
I don't know if it's because of the internet and people are more outspoken now, that people are more willing to come out and talk about it. I think that's a piece of that puzzle. I think that Coonbo and I and Troy have bounced this around, that maybe in the last 25 years that these things had a population explosion, that there are more, that maybe there are more, and everybody knows too, we've had more, even here, places when I was a kid, it was nothing but wilderness and old farms or growed up farms. Well, that's been sold off and houses have been built. I mean, there's the population is spread out, and they've lost a lot of habitat that would have been, wooded areas or thick grown up areas, and now there's houses and more people. Well, what's the two things that you got to have a sighting? You got to have a Bigfoot, and you got to have a person to experience the Bigfoot. You take either one of those out, you can't have an encounter. So, I mean, that's I think it's probably all the above.
Yeah, I kind of wonder sometimes if it's people are starting to be more open and awake to these things. So maybe, like you said, like when you used to go out in the woods, you don't really remember any of these experiences or seeing it. So maybe you weren't tuned into that yet. But I think maybe people now are tuned in. So maybe there's more experiences.
Well, I think so. I mean, whether somebody believes in it or not, if they watch a podcast and they're just open-minded, and they start listening to other people talk about, well, this is what happened, this is what I experienced. Well, if they go to the woods and they have something similar, instead of just going, I don't know what that is, and writing it off as, well, that's probably a deer, or it may be a bear, or it may be a bird, or whatever, they may go, I don't know what that is, but these people that had an encounter said that that's what these things will do, or this is how they act. So, yeah, I think that knowledge, I think, there's a lot of things about the internet that I despise, but I think the internet's brought people closer together, and it's absolutely spread a lot of knowledge.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just like you. I grew up hunting in the woods with my dad, my brother, and cousins and uncles and stuff, and I don't have an experience from then, but then I sit here now and think back, is like, we've heard loud noises in the tree. We thought maybe a tree fell over. I mean, it was like huge sounds, it's like, well, I guess trees do fall over. So, I mean, that's how we wrote it off, but maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. Y'all look, I've heard pretty much anything you can attribute or that people attribute to them. I've pretty much heard it. I told y'all before the show, I heard them sound like kids playing, and they was running and chasing each other in a pine thicket over a mile from a paved road, or from a road really, other than the road on that property. There's no houses around that they could have just come out of a neighborhood into. I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I'm in the middle of 300 acres of old farmland. It's all timber except a 28-acre field and a 12-acre field, and I'm over there in the middle of it, and about 100 yards from where I'm at to the wood line, in this grown up pine thicket with small pine trees, 12, 14 foot tall. It's on the side of a hill, that thicket is. And when I first heard it, I thought it was deer, like a buck deer chasing does. But then I knew it didn't sound right because of the way it was crashing and breaking limbs. And I could hear it running and hear it sound bipedal, but there was more than one. And then I finally figured out there was probably at least 4 or 5 of them, because of where all they were running and all the multiple sounds I'm hearing. And I can hear them breaking limbs. I can hear them going through the briar thickets, briars breaking. I could hear vines pulling, the leaves stripping off of vines. And these things were making weird noises that I've never heard. I've killed 2 train cars full of deer in my life and seen thousands and thousands of deer in the woods that I didn't shoot. I'm hearing noises that I can't explain. And then these sounds that I'm hearing start giggling. And then they would laugh. And then it would be multiple of them giggling and laughing. And it sounded just like children playing. Wow. But it was a deeper voice than children. But it was like they were like kids playing tag or chasing each other. And they were running all over this hillside. And I don't mean slowly. I'm talking about these things are covering some ground on the side of this hill. And we're talking about a hill that goes up probably 75 or 80 yards up before it. And it's on a slope about like that. It's not just super steep. It's not like this. It's about like that. You got the field, and then it goes up that hill, and that's where all the timber is. Well, we're talking about over 100 yards, like left and right, and going up the hill 75 yards. These things are just back and forth and up and down and over here and then back. And they're running all over this thing like they're hiding, like playing hide and seek.
Wow.
And y'all, they would giggle. And that was some of the creepiest shit I've ever experienced. And look, y'all, I'm up in this ladder stand, and I'm sitting up here with a semi-automatic 30-06 Brown and Rifle. And not only is this in all these briars and all this growed up mess, it's like in the 20-something degrees. And this is like 30 minutes before dark in the wintertime. Now, there is absolutely, it would be like way better chance of hitting the lotto for that being children than that was children. There's no way that was children. Right. But they would absolutely giggling and laughing like kids, but with a deeper voice. And it was like they were playing.
Wow.
That was odd.
Yep. You hear so many stories about, the young ones are so energetic, and, they're curious, and they touch things and move things. And then you have the teenagers where it might be a little bit more mischievous, might make some jokes, or, I mean, it's just like humans, only in the animal world. It's unbelievable, the characteristics that are so common.
Yeah, that, and another thing too, guys. A lot of people get stuck on what did you smell? Did you smell them? What did they smell like? Did you smell them? I'll tell you straight up, these things don't smell all the time.
Right.
They do not. They do not smell all the time. Now I've smelt them so strong, it would make your eyes water. And it was like when you go to breathe it in, it's like your body's going, don't bring that in here. No. Mm-hmm. And it's horrific. And it does not smell like a skunk. Now, it's as strong or stronger than a skunk smell, but it's not like a skunk. It's hard for me to explain it, but once you smell it, you'll know what it is. It's horrible. It's kind of like a sweaty livestock smell, like urine, real strong urine-y, musky smell. Mm. It's like a urinal somewhere that hadn't been flushed in like weeks, 100-degree weather. Just a lot of ammonia to it, real musky. kind of a livestocky smell.
Right.
Some people say kind of like a garbage or rotted meat. Yeah, that's an aspect to it sometimes, but mostly it's like to me, it's more of a livestocky, musky, like more putrid urine smell. But I've had it. No joke. It would be so bad. It would absolutely burn your eyes. I've actually before I had such a beard, I took my T-shirt and pulled it up over my nose and my mouth to try to filter some of it out. It would be so bad.
Wow.
Well,
And
I've heard stories of people saying they would smell something real sweet, like flowery also.
Well, I can tell you what the rumor about that is, and that comes straight from Troy Allen and Kundo both. They swear that if you smells like honeysuckle, like a real sweet honeysuckle smell, that's when you need to worry, because that their breath smells that way, and that you're that close that you're smelling their breath. Now, whether that's right or not, I'm just repeating what I've been told. So I don't care to be that close to one. But now I'll tell you this. As far as I know, the closest I've ever been to one is I walked right by one coming out from my stand one night, and I had my rifle laying on my shoulder, holding it with one hand. I had the scope and the receiver laying on my shoulder and the barrel point behind me. And right over my right shoulder, in the edge of the bushes I just walked by, I'd walked within 6 feet of one. And right as I stepped past it, the thing huff grunted at me. And I like to turn inside out. I'm talking about, and the only thing I could figure is it was either crouched down or squatted or maybe crawled up right on the edge of that. It was in the thicket right where I walked by. But that thing, it just kind of went like, and it was, it was like the sound. You felt the sound. I could feel it when it hit me. And I like to turn inside out. And I had just walked right past it. It was just over my shoulder. There's no more. I'd walked within 6 feet of it. I never smelled nothing, never heard nothing until they did that.
Wow. That's the other thing to talk about is how quiet they can be. We brought up stories about how loud they were in the forest or in the woods, but there's so many stories of like people, they would be the Bigfoot or whatever, be running or get across the field or across the woods, but they would not hear a sound from them.
You're right. That's exactly factual. I've been in that thicket to where if a squirrel tried to go through there, he would sound like an elephant. I've been in that stand for 3 or 4 hours, never hear anything coming around you. Next thing you know, I'd get growled at, or get something thrown at me. And then when they finally did let you know where they was, these things would be within 50, 60 feet. And they would be, somehow or another, they got up there that close to me, and I can't explain how they did it. I have no clue. Because I never heard anything. Nothing. Armadillo walked through there and it sounded like an elephant. Squirrel sounded like an elephant. But here this thing is. I've had them do that and then start walk out through that thicket. And I've seen like pine saplings that would be bigger around than a Coke can, be 10 foot tall. I've seen those saplings. They would push the saplings apart and walk. You could see like they were shoving their way through it. Sounded like it was breaking limbs that big, snapping. And that sound, I'd be there for hours, never hear nothing. And all of a sudden, they would let you know that they were right there on top of you. And then once they let you know they were there, they didn't care if you knew. You could hear them walking around. I've had them come in and like make a half horseshoe around my stand and go back and then come back across and then leave.
Yeah, I think that is, even if you know where they are, what are you going to do about it? I mean, nothing. I mean, we can just sit here and experience it. That's it.
Yeah,
Well, some
I
of the
don't
crazy
know.
things you hear is what possibly, besides a Sasquatch, would be able to pick up a small tree, pull it out of the ground with the roots, and then shove it upside down into the ground with the roots up. I mean, a lot of people have experienced that. It can't just be a bear. Bears can't do that. I heard, that, they're just pulling them out of the ground and just turning them upside down, just shoving them in the ground.
Yeah, I've experienced so much stuff that I absolutely cannot explain by it being any kind of animal known. Well, not well, we won't say known, but categorized or in the school book animals. I don't know why there's so much cloak and dagger got to be involved in this, like with all the hush hush and keep it secret and the taboo part of it. I have no clue. I just, I tell people now, people talk about UFOs. I've never seen a UFO. Never. Not never. Never. Nothing. I don't go out looking for them. I mean, I've seen stuff in the sky at night that, okay, it may have been a plane, it may not. I didn't dwell on it. I didn't care. Especially the last 25 years, I've been worried about stuff that's down here on the ground running around with me. I didn't need any more on my plate to have to deal with.
Right.
Right.
But, yeah, but guys, really, I mean, like I said, I hadn't, of course, I've never been on y'all's show, and I don't know. I figure y'all probably got some subs some subscribers on y'all show that may not even know about our show, but we do, we do the Woodwalkers, and it's Walkerz with a Z instead of S on the end. We do Woodwalkers, and then me and Misty do my coach. It's Spencer Jameson, Misty Haynes, and me that do Woodwalkers, and then me and Misty do like a kind of after hours or a late night show. It's still part of the Woodwalkers, but we call it Night Owls, OWLZ. We do that, and that's where we talk about all kind of crazy stuff. Not, Woodwalkers, we try to stick to Bigfoot and or a little bit about dogmen. We don't talk about it a lot, but that's our main thing. And now Woodwalkers, we have some really good guests, really good people. I mean, just great people involved. But Night Owls, we liable to let it just slip off and it goes south quick. We liable to be talking about anything. And
sounds like our show. We do a night owl lounge real late on Wednesday night and just hang out with our chat for like 4 hours.
Whatever comes up, comes up.
We have a train wreck every week.
Well, that's what we do. Now we do get some good guests. We had me and Misty had Miss Vic. We had Miss Vicky on a couple of weeks ago. We get some good folks come on. Buddy Creek podcast. We had Miss Vicky, and everybody loves Miss Vicky. But we got a lot of people that show up, and Woodwalk or Night Owls. Excuse me, Night Owls is it's gaining steam. We don't do it all the time. We just kind of a random hit and miss. We'll do one. Misty stays real busy. Me and Spencer and Misty all got something going on all the time, but we try to throw an episode of it out pretty regular. And then don't forget everybody, Squatch and Holler. We got so many folks on here that it's just great people. I mean, it took me 20 minutes. Like Mark and Rebecca Green, just wonderful people that I've got to meet and know, and a lot of them I've got to meet in person. Jeff and Jeff Yarrington and Jerry, they got theirs, their podcast, Old Line Cryptids, and they got some good guests coming on. So, but yeah, and look, guys, the ones that I ain't mentioning, we ain't got time. Y'all know who you are. So
Gary's been putting everybody's links in there, and Armad Blazer also has been putting links in the channel, and so hopefully everybody from our side will find you guys Woodwalkers, and hopefully some of the people that's coming over from your channel will find us and stick with us for a while and see what we're all about.
Yeah, that's the reason I went ahead and posted the link to this on our Woodwalkers. We got a Facebook page, Woodwalkers with a Z. We got a Facebook page. It's really good. I mean, we got a lot of great people on there. So, and look, anybody that wants to go to Woodwalkers and wants to get into Facebook, look, when you submit a request to join, there's 3 questions. Answer the questions. That lets us know you ain't a troll or you ain't a bot or whatever. So look, answer the questions, please. You can put like a couple of words. You don't have to go and write a novel. Just one of them's like, do you believe in Bigfoot? You can tell yes or no. even if you put no, we ain't gonna kick you out. We know that you're a real person.
Right.
What got you? I think one of them's like, what got you interested in it? And one of them's maybe, have you had an encounter or something? It's just 3 questions, but just, hey, put something down and we know you're a real person and you're not scamming, but answer those. And, what we're getting several requests, every day. I mean, people wanting to join. So the Facebook page is growing. I mean, it's growing pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, I looked today. It was, for some reason we're stuck, and I mean, y'all having a show. Y'all know what it's like to gain subscribers.
Right.
I don't know exactly how many less than 100, but we're less than 100 people having 3,000. It's like we cannot break the 3,000 threshold. So, but maybe we'll pick up a few folks, and so look. Look, guys, anybody that's watching this, if y'all have been subscribed, if you don't care, double check, make sure that Facebook ain't went squirrely and kicked you out. Because some of the places that I've been subscribed to, they've unsubscribed me. I didn't do it, but I wouldn't be subscribed anymore.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, same thing with YouTube and all these social medias. It seems like somehow you get kicked out of places that you've been subscribed and watching shows for a long time, and all of a sudden you don't get notifications anymore.
Right.
Yep, that's exactly right. I don't know. I mean, I'll go through every now and then and double check and make sure that I'm still signed up and subscribed. Another 2 more guys. I mean, if any of y'all's viewers, if y'all are not keeping up with D.A. Roberts, D.A. Ex Machina, go check him out. I mean, D.A.'s buddy ours. I mean, him and Robbie Raines are awesome folks.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had DA on our show before.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. DA's he's a good dude. Him and Robbie both.
Yeah.
Our show covers the gambit. We go paranormal, cryptid, UFO, aliens. So the anything with high strangeness, so it's not always the same subject with us every week, but we try to get as many guests from as many fields as we can to bring more information to our crowd. But we do talk Bigfoot, and we do talk about it quite a bit. And just like you, we have the Night Owl Lounge, and it's just kind of a free for all, whatever the chat wants to talk about and hang out with us. That's where we go.
Yeah, look, dude. I mean, to me, it's about the people. I love interacting with the chat. I mean, I really do, because I mean, without them folks, we wouldn't have a show. I mean, they're a big part of it. I mean, I want everybody to feel like I don't want them to feel. I want them to know that we appreciate them. I don't want them just to feel like they appreciate it. I want them to know we appreciate all of them. So
that is true. Without chat, we wouldn't have a show. I mean, they're our supporters and our family and our friends. Yeah, that's what keeps us going.
Yep. Absolutely. Night Owl Lounge. We're more interactive to chat, because a lot of times when we do have a guest on, it's hard to keep up with chat and keep up with what the guest is talking about and ask pertinent questions. So Night Owl Lounge is us that's communicating with the chat, and a lot of times we'll end up giving away our channel stickers all the time. So I think we gave out 4 or 5 stickers sets to people last time, because they sent an email to us wanting stickers. So we always give those out free.
Good deal. And y'all here, like I said, the cool thing about like Spencer and Misty, I mean, and for validation for me, I mean, it's overwhelming, because Spencer and Misty's both been here. Misty's been here several times, but I've had my close friends, the ones I can trust. And now, I'm not saying I don't trust more, but the ones that has been here, I've had a bunch of people here that's had encounters. Mark Green's been here. He's been here several times. He's experienced stuff here. Roger, Squatch and Holler Roger. Roger's only like an hour and a half drive from me, so he can come down in just a few minutes. He's had some encounters right here. Roger and his son found some footprints down here about 200 feet from where I'm sitting down here in the creek bank.
Wow.
Sherry, Misty's aunt, Sherry Renault, she's I guess the head in charge of the Southern Appalachian Sasquatch Seekers. So it's SAS, SAS. But
Cool.
her and her sister Donna and Sherry's husband Jim and Misty came, and then we had a couple of more. It was Misty's sister and her husband. They all came. I had pretty much the whole SAS group here, and they stayed about a week. But Sherry and Donna, the second day, they got here one day, and then I think the next day they said, "Can we go around exploring out?" I said, "Look, just don't put out no cameras. If you look, don't go out like you're researching, but if you want to go like a nature walk, because I don't want these things to get belligerent again." They went less than I started to say less than 100 yards, but it's about 75 yards. If I walked out this door, straight out of the edge of my yard into the woods right here is only like 20 feet. They went 75 yards, and they found 3 different size barefoot footprints in a little place that they had cleared over here in the woods. It was some clay. And I think one of them was one of the tracks was around 8 or 9 inches, and one was like 14 inches, and the other one was right at 18 inches long.
Wow.
They found stick structures within 50 feet of my porch in the edge of the woods. They found all kind of stuff right here. We sat on the porch night after night and had these things coming around us, screaming, howling, hitting trees. One came out, we got to see in the red eye shine. There was about 10 of us on my porch. We were playing board games. We were playing Jenga. Everybody laughing, cutting up, just ignoring the woods. And then we got to see in red eye shine. The thing was in the edge of the woods, and we could hear it walking. We're hearing a little bit. We're all sitting out there, and a rock about that big comes flying out of the woods. It goes right by the porch post in the light and lands in the yard and bounces across my yard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've had all kind of stuff happen right here. And that, for me, what the cool thing is the validation of it's not just me telling people what I've experienced. It's all my buddies, the researchers that come here. And they're like, yeah, we're sitting down there and this is what happened. My God, we found this, we found that. This is what we had. And, for me, that it's really awesome that these folks is come and had stuff happen. And I've got some more folks that's supposed to come. Pyromedic's one of them. Maybe he'll get down here one of these days, stay with me for a while. I got to get Pyro down here. But yeah, they, I don't know, y'all. It won't be, maybe one of these days, maybe we'll all live long enough to see the main news media and all these scientists and the government say, yep, these things is real and we've been hiding it for a long time. Maybe we'll get to see that.
Maybe.
Yeah, Gary Spikes, that's right. I hope you do get here in June. Yeah, I've been telling Gary he's got to come by. If he's coming to Alabama in June, I'm gonna be upset if he don't get right over here and sit in this recliner with me. Got a double recliner right there, Gary. One half of it's got your name on it.
There you go.
When you were telling that story for a second, I was thinking you were going to say that our rock came and hit the Jenga tower down.
No, that would have been awesome. Hey, it wouldn't have got much more exciting if it had a. But now, y'all, I'm gonna tell you something. We'll just dive off into a wee little inch or so of the woo factor. I don't know what Misty's got going on with her, but these things here absolutely know when she's here. I'm talking about every time she comes, these things act wild. I mean, crazy. She pulled up down here one day, and I heard her pull up, and I got up and walked outside on the porch and went down in the yard. She got out of her Jeep. She's got a 4-door Jeep. She got out of the Jeep, and within 5 minutes, it was 75 yards right here in the woods. It sounded like I was at a massive, like a big city zoo somewhere, and we were in the primate exhibit. It was a god-awfulest. It sounded like a bunch of orangutans, monkeys, gorillas. I'm talking about, they had to have been 5 or 6 of them at least. These things was making some of the god-awfulest sounds you've ever heard in your life. And they done it when she got here and got out of the Jeep and was out there talking to me. it was just like a roar of them things right over here in the Woodland.
Wow.
She's experienced all kind of stuff here. I don't know what the deal. It's like they know that she's here.
I think it's a frequency thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, have you ever met those people that dogs will come up to them, wildlife will just come up to them? I think they just emit that love or that frequency out, and I think it's the same thing with Sasquatch. I think they just know. It's almost like your favorite cousin showing up. They emit that. They just change the whole atmosphere in the area.
Yeah.
They also know
look,
you're a jerk.
That's another thing with me. Like what I do for a living, I have to go to a lot of people's houses, and I've had guys that help me do HVAC work. I've had helpers that young guys, and some of them not young, older guys that I've had work for me, part time or through the summertime when I really need help. I went to strangers' houses where I've never been before, and they've had dogs that they'd come out and they'd be barking, and I could open my door and say something to them dogs, and I could get out, and they'd walk up to me like I was the owner. And then I would tell my helper, all right, come on, they're fine. And my helper would get out, they'd try to eat them alive. They'd have to get back in the vehicle. And y'all, a lot of times I could get between the dog and them, and the dog would be okay. But I couldn't, like if I was in the house working on something, I couldn't send my helper outside by himself to go get tools out of the vehicle. I'd have to go get them. Because as soon as he'd open the door, the dog tried to eat him alive. Now, they wouldn't mess with me. I mean, most animals like that, I can just look at them or talk to them, and they're fine. But now, a lot of my helpers, I don't know what the difference was. Do not know. But it just like they'd want the animals, the dogs and stuff, would want to eat them alive. But I've always had it like I don't say a gift, but it was like animals. I get along with animals pretty easy. So. Look at there, y'all.
What frequency or what that you project out?
Yeah. Y'all, hey, forget it. Look there, we got somebody in the chat right there. You talking about a fine, upstanding man that I absolutely love with all my heart, River Morris. He has been under the weather. I don't know what he's had him. He's had him a membership at the hospital here for a while. He's been under the weather. River, brother, I'm so glad to see you're in chat. I tried to call you 3 times. I ain't been able to get a hold of him in the last week or so. So anyway, yep. Are y'all familiar with River?
I am not.
No, I've never heard of River.
Well, let me tell you something. River Morris is like a brother from another mother, and he's as far away from here as anybody I've ever talked to. River Morris is a Aboriginal tribal member in Australia.
Oh, wow. Well, we just have another Australian just pulling chat too. Mr. B just came in. He's from Australia.
Okay. Yep. River Morris, that's where he is. He is in Australia. And talking about a good man. Golly. And him, and I ain't going to forget to mention too, Brother Gary Spikes. Y'all keep River and Gary both in your prayers. Yep. Both of them, I don't know what the deal. We can't get them healed up totally, but maybe both of them's going to get on their feet and be doing good pretty soon.
Amen. We've been praying for you.
Yep. So, well, guys, I'm going to have to get off here pretty soon. I've got prior engagements I got to go get took care of, but I really appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all letting me come on and at least give y'all the cliff notes of some of my encounters. We ain't even hardly scratched the surface, but I'll give y'all the high spots anyway.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show. That's just great.
I hope you'll come back again, and maybe you can bring some of your team or your close knit people with if they want to come on, and maybe we'll have a small panel or something.
Yeah, that would be fun, having a small panel show.
Yeah, we could probably do that. Work something up. But well, guys, like I said, I appreciate y'all having me, and maybe there'll be somebody out there that hadn't heard my encounter, so want to hear some more. And like I said, I just enjoy talking to people. And like I said, I went a long time. I didn't want to talk to people, and then I realized that me keeping it bottled up wasn't helping nobody. Right. It really wasn't even helping. It wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping me at all. And I've got some encounters, y'all, that I hadn't told y'all about any of the horrific and scariest things that's happened. I've got some encounters that I have to be careful when I tell them, because if I let myself slide off in it too far, I have to relive it, and it messes me up for several days. I mean, I don't care. I don't really like telling them sometimes, but I do. I tell them periodically. I just can't talk about it a lot because I get to dwelling on it. But I've had times when I thought that was going to be my demise. I thought I'm not going to make it. And I mean, it's been some bad encounters with these things.
Wow.
Yeah, I imagine it's just like you hear about war veterans reliving, being, the bombs and stuff going off when they hear fireworks at the 4th of July. So I imagine if you start dredging it up, you'll have to go right through that again. And
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's exactly what it goes down to, y'all. Like I said, I've been in law enforcement 16 years, and I've never had anything doing that even close to what I've put up with over in these woods as far as fear. Not even close.
wow.
So, but yeah, it's been an eye opener. We'll put it that way. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. We'll just say bye to chat real quick. And thank you everyone for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you all. We're nothing but big family, and meeting new people. Our family is just increasing, isn't it?
Yep. Make sure you go over to the links that Gary and Blazer and all of our mods have been sharing, and go out and check Woodwalkerz and hang out with them. Even the night owl lounge that we do, and their night owl show, and hang out and have fun, and just like Greg said, make sure you tell people about your experiences. We're all like-minded here, and this is a great place to open up. And if you want to send us an email at midwestnightwatchers@gmail.com, and you can share stuff with us, and we won't share it out unless you tell us it's okay.
So on that note,
I always sign off by telling everybody, big love, y'all. And we'll see y'all soon.
all right. Yep. Much love, everyone.
Love and peace, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.